thanks everybody for coming. Welcome. So this is our third or fourth presentation today, and now we are welcoming Robert Cheeke, who is a vegan bodybuilder, and he's kind of known as the godfather of vegan bodybuilding, and he's also a local boy from Corvallis, Oregon. Became vegan and built his muscles from the beginning as a vegan when he was starting at 15, when he was skinny and wanted to put on be stronger, and and what he's going to talk to us about today, maybe some of you saw the website, but he's going to teach us to create a consistent program to achieve results in our own muscle building and eat for nourishment rather than stimulation, save money by eating for efficiency, and a lot more. And he also has a booth. How many people have been at his table? Okay, so yeah, it's right as you walk in from the food court on your right, and he has all his books, although he tells me some are sold out, but he does have his latest, The Impactful Vegan, which he'll be showing us today or talking about. And anyway, I know many of us are very excited to welcome him and listen to his talk, so I'll hand it over. Thank you. Sorry. Two things I have to mention is first that Compassionate Living produced this festival along with our group, Live Lifestyle Medicine. And also, this is just not medical advice, it's just education for us all. So thank you.
Great to be here. I see some familiar faces, some I haven't seen in years. This is really cool to see. I mean, people from my Portland days, from my Corvallis, my own neighborhood, haven't seen in 25 years. They're in the back. Friends I met 20 years ago. It's so great to be back in Oregon. This is awesome. I live in Colorado these days, but I was born and raised down the road, or up the road as it were, in Corvallis, Oregon, which is where I started my vegan journey. And I figure we'll start there, and then we'll get into all the nuances of building your body on a plant-based diet, something that I have done for 30 years. Or as I like to say, I've been vegan since the late 1900s, before the turn of the century. So I've got a little bit of experience doing it. But let me tell you how this all began for me, because I think that's fundamentally important. Our why is what keeps many of us here in this room. You know, why are you vegan? Dude, who cares? Right? Who cares about animals? Who cares about the planet? Who cares about your health? Well, if you do, state your case. Show me with your actions. Show me how you show up in the world, right? If it matters to you, wear it on your sleeve. And lead by example and become an impactful vegan. So this is how it started for me. I grew up on a farm in Corvallis, Oregon, on Kiger Island. My parents met in the animal science department. My father was a professor of animal science for 30 years. He traveled around the world. He became a world specialist, actually. He wrote a bunch of textbooks and was one of the best rabbit researchers in the world. And he taught people on 6 continents, traveling around the planet, how to raise animals for food production. He was a specialist in this. My father came from a farming background himself, from a small town in British Columbia, Canada, outside of Victoria. My mother grew up down the road here in Harrisburg, a town that only had a few hundred people at the time when she was growing up in the 40s. And they wanted to raise our family on a farm as well and embrace the 4-H system and raising animals for food, just like they did. Show them at the county fair, sell them at the auction, wash, rinse, repeat over and over again. So that's what I did. I raised farmed animals. As Taylor knows, I had a dairy right next to me, a functioning dairy right next to the farm I was on. There's another dairy down the road. And I got some of those dairy calves to be pets. Some that maybe had birth defects or they just weren't wanted and were otherwise just going to be slaughtered and turned into food. And so our neighbor asked, my parents, would one of your kids want these as a 4-H project? And so I did. So in addition to dairy calves, I showed chickens and rabbits and guinea pigs and all sorts of animals. But I think when I reflect back on this, as I do lots of podcast interviews and have conversations about what was my turning point or my why to become vegan and stick with it for 3 decades, one of those reasons was raising a dairy calf that I would bottle feed before getting on the school bus and come home and bottle feed and play with, and a calf who would follow me around much like a dog would. And then I decided that it was time for him to be turned into someone else's meal. And I broke the trust of the individual who loved me more than anybody in the world, right? Because I was the provider. I was a source of bottle feeding, nourishment, of friendship, so to speak. And so that didn't sit super well with me. And that coincided with my older sister's influence. I just want to just tell this brief story so you know the context of where I got started. My older sister became vegan before I did, sometime in the early 1990s, and she decided to put on an animal rights week at our high school, at Corvallis High School. Much like, yeah, go ahead, clap it up, yeah. Because this fundamentally changed my life forever. My older sister put on an event, kind of like this, but at a high school and back in the 90s, so a lot of black and white print materials and maybe even black and white videos. And I decided on that December day, Wednesday, December 8th, that I would attend this Animal Rights Week to support my older sister, who's 2 years older than me. At the time, honestly, I had no interest in veganism or vegetarianism. I loved eating chickens. I loved eating foods like bacon from pigs. That was enjoyable to me. And I was a really small kid. I weighed 89.25 pounds in 8th grade, barely 100 pounds when I got into high school. And at this point, I was a sophomore in high school, at maybe 120 pounds, because like Peter, I wrestled 133 the next year. So I'm guessing I was about 120 pounds at this time, but I wanted to get bigger and stronger. I was a product of the 1980s of pro wrestling and He-Man and Captain Planet. And I wanted to be like that, especially being small. I wanted something that I had never had. And so on December 8th, 1995, I went to this Animal Rights Week. Skeptical, not so interested, but supporting my older sister. And I listened to speakers, much like you're doing throughout the day today. I watched videos of large-scale, industrialized factory farming and animal testing. I read literature, and like I said, a lot of these were black and white materials back then. I ate vegan foods that were provided, and very importantly, I had conversations with people about why this mattered to them. Whether animals, especially farmed animals, matter in our society or not, or if they're just there as commodities. And I decided I would give it a try, and I would become vegan. So I embraced it with all kinds of energy and enthusiasm. And after a couple weeks, I didn't feel so good. I questioned whether I should stick with it. Let me tell you why. I was a sophomore in high school, 15 years old, didn't have a lot of my own money, wasn't driving. I would have breakfast. Maybe this was some sort of sugary cereal with a soy milk or the translucent rice milk back then. I don't recall necessarily. Then I go to school and eat those white refined French bread rolls. I love them, you love them, warm, fluffy, they're great stuff. I go off to class, and for lunch I'd have chips and salsa and some sesame seed bagels and maybe some candy and natural soda. And I'd go off to one of my many sports practices. Like Taylor, we played soccer in the fall, and I had track and field in the spring, and all these different sports I played. Then I'd come home and have usually maybe some spaghetti and put peanut butter on it. I invented pad thai and didn't even know it. That was mine. I invented it. Unbelievable. It's like super popular. It came from me. You're welcome. For those who enjoy it, you're welcome. And then I'd come home and have some like hemp-based ice cream after dinner and call it good. Notice anything there? Yeah, didn't eat any food. I gotcha. I had some tomatoes in the salsa, and the chips and salsa at lunch, and a couple sesame seeds. Tremendous calorie source. Why do I say that? Because it didn't really work for me. Has anyone in this room ever met anyone who said, I tried being vegan, didn't work for me? Okay, the rest of you are liars. It's okay. We've all come across that, right? We've all said, I've tried being vegan or vegetarian, it didn't work for me, right? Just like I've tried a fitness outcome. I tried burning fat or building muscle, just didn't work for me. Yeah, we've all been there. That's why New Year's resolutions end on January 17th. Wait another 11.5 months and try again. So what happened there? I wasn't really eating food, but I was a 5-sport athlete, and I was determined, and I had this ethical viewpoint that I wanted to not contribute to unnecessary animal suffering. I wanted to stick with it, but I didn't feel very well. So I had to learn about food. I had to learn. I mean, we grew up on a farm. We had all kinds of food right outside. I could pick apples from the tree, pears from the tree, plums from the tree, corn and potatoes and beans and all these things from the garden. I just had to embrace what was around me and do it. And so I did. And I was a fairly successful 5-sport athlete in high school. I didn't always fit in with the soccer guys. And so after we won the state championship the year before I played varsity, I played 1 year of varsity soccer, and then I quit to run cross country where a lot of my friends were. And I was fast. It was something I was good at. And I was able to show that I could have this great success. We were ranked number 2 in the state in cross country at Corvallis High School as a cross country runner, but I checked in right here. What do I really want to do? Like, what do I want to do, and how do I want to show up in the world with what I believe in now? And that's what I wanted to get bigger and stronger. Not just for me, but everywhere I went, everyone I talked to, whether they were teammates on sports or coaches or classmates or family or friends, everyone said this is not going to work. You can't build your body without animal protein. This is back in the mid-90s before the internet was something we all had at home. Not a lot of resources out there, not a lot of support. But I wanted to show that I could do it. I wanted to prove, I didn't know this whole internet thing was going to be a really big thing that you could be on like a Wikipedia page and stuff where you can find me now. I didn't know that. I thought you'd see like Brad Pitt or famous people on the internet. But what I wanted to do was show my community in front of me. My family, my classmates, my teammates, those who questioned whether this was a viable option. And even if it wasn't, even if it was true that you couldn't build your body with plants, I still didn't want to eat animals because I raised them. I saw them as individuals who wanted to live their lives free of fear, pain, and suffering just like me. I acknowledged that. And I said, even if this doesn't work, I'm going to stick with it. But what if it works? What if I can make this work? And so I tried. I hung up my running shoes. I even ran 1 year at Oregon State University, which I realized is nothing like running for the University of Oregon at Hayward Field and Tracktown, USA in Eugene, Oregon, but it was a small running club at Corvallis, and I loved it. But I decided I was going to hang that up and start lifting weights and build muscle. And after an entire year of lifting weights with all the enthusiasm I could muster, I gained 1 pound. Thank you. Thank you. That was like a quarter century ago, and it still hurts. How do you think that made me feel? Not awesome. Maybe they're right. Maybe this is not going to work. Maybe it's not a viable option. But I've been down this road before. I tried veganism, but I didn't eat food. And I wondered why it didn't work. I was just eating ultra-processed foods. Super concentrated, calorie-rich, nutrient-poor foods that just stimulate you, full of sugar and caffeine and, everything else, oils, all this stuff. I wasn't eating real food. Once I figured that out, okay, things work themselves out. So I had to make an assessment here. What am I doing? Well, I was lifting weights, but I was also running a lot because that's what I was good at. I was cycling. I was doing push-ups and crunches. I was playing basketball and soccer. I was burning so many calories. I was expending so much. I wasn't eating enough that I could repair damaged muscle tissue and rebuild, replenish, and get bigger and stronger muscles. I was not scientifically putting myself in a position to build muscle, and I just waved my hand, it's not working for me. Yet I never put myself in a position to do it. So once again, I had to figure things out. So I'm going to date myself here a little bit. Is anyone here familiar with the Body for Life program? Bill Phillips Body for Life program? Handful of people? Okay. It's probably... Oh, wow. Someone really doesn't like the Body for Life program. Okay. All right. I won't tell Bill. So the Bill Phillips Body for Life program is probably the most successful body transformation program in history. Came out in the late 1990s. Massive, massive success. It helped people lose weight, build muscle, do all kinds of things. Body transformation. And I know, they're complicated. They're complicated. It's like the plant-based diet, and it's like exercise. At first you fail, first you stumble, and then you get it.
No, it's just automatic.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get that. But what Bill Phillips was doing in this Body for Life program was just two things. He was asking people who read his book and followed his program, really, for two things: consistency and accountability. He was asking us to work out 6 days a week, but never more than 52 minutes, for those who know. 46-minute workouts, 52-minute workouts, but it was showing up day after day, not making excuses or I don't have time or I don't feel like it, or I'm not in the mood. And to eat 6 times a day, proteins, carbohydrates, and fats consistently throughout the day to reach certain targets. I had tried to build muscle on my own, and I gained 1 pound in a whole year, as I just told you. I did this Bill Phillips Body for Life program, just a book I heard about. And I gained 19 pounds in 12 weeks. My goal was building muscle, mind you. A lot of people use it to lose weight as well. And I thought, well, if this is working so well, let's keep it going. So I ended up gaining 28 pounds in 10 months, put on another 10 pounds after that, and the next thing I knew, I was a competitive bodybuilder. And the next thing I knew, I was a champion vegan bodybuilder. And the next thing I knew, I was competing at the Natural Bodybuilding World Championships. And the next thing I knew, I was on magazine covers. And the next thing I knew, I was invited to speak in Australia and in China and in the UK and in the Caribbean and throughout Canada and all over the US and really throughout North America. And it started with that understanding of what we need to do to put ourselves in a position to succeed. I imagine if there's anyone here who's run a marathon, you didn't run after day 1 of training, right? You run down the street, and then the next day you run down the street and turn the corner. The next day you go around the corner and down the road a little bit further. The next day, maybe you run over to the park and do a little lap around, and all of a sudden you adapt, you get better, you improve, and you eventually can run a marathon if you put in the work. How does this map on to everybody here and the real world? If there's anybody in this room who has ever had a fitness goal, let's just take the most popular fitness goal in the world. Everyone has it. Everybody wants to either lose weight or burn fat. So we'll just call it fat burning. We've all had this goal one time or another, at least most of us, or we know someone who has, because it is the most popular New Year's resolution. If there's anybody in this room who's had a fitness goal, then clearly, show of hands or shout out a number. Clearly, everybody here knows precisely how many calories you expend per day. 4-digit number. Based on your gender, age, height, weight, activity level. You want to throw out a number? 2,000 sounds pretty generic. It's good because it's going to be unique to each person, right? 3,255. Yeah, exactly, right? Once we know that information, then we can create the results we're looking for. How can you possibly expect to burn fat or lose weight if you have no idea how many calories you expend per day? And of course, everyone knows, again, throw out a 4-digit number, just the closest number that your average, how many calories do you consume per day? Everyone knows that on average for themselves? Okay. I like what I'm hearing back there. Right. 99% of people don't know this. Yet we say, I can't lose weight or I can't build muscle. It's just not, I'm not built for that. I don't have the genetics for it. I didn't either. I have no business being here. I barely weighed 100 pounds when I became vegan. I was 89 pounds in 8th grade. But I've been a champion vegan bodybuilder touring around the world. I got up to 220 pounds. I put on 100 pounds on a plant-based diet when the number one objection to veganism in the 1990s and in 2025, aside from I don't care, is you can't get enough protein on a plant-based diet. You can't build muscle without animal protein. I've been working for 30 years to put that to rest. But if we don't know on an individual level, you and you and you and you, how many calories you're expending per day and how many calories you're consuming per day, how can you possibly expect an outcome of burning fat or building muscle? Just like my frustration, I tried and it didn't work. I gained 1 pound in a whole year. I did not put myself in a position to build muscle. Just like New Year's resolutions and January 17th, it didn't work for me. I got to wait another 11 and a half months and try again, because we don't put ourselves in a position to see the results. We get frustrated. We get discouraged. Did you know the average or the typical American has the same New Year's resolution for 10 consecutive years before deciding, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. And change something else. Try something different. So here's what I'm telling you today. There are tools for this. One is called the Harris-Benedict equation, Harris-Benedict equation, or Harris-Benedict calculator. It's going to factor in things like gender, age, height, weight, and very importantly, activity level to determine, as close as you can get, how many calories you expend per day. We should all know that. It's our basal metabolic rate plus activity, right? Not just non-exercise activity thermogenesis, NEAT, but actual physical workouts. You got to factor that calorie expenditure in. Once you know that number, then use an app like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer or something like that and track your calorie intake. I'm not saying track your food for the rest of your life, but if you are not burning fat or losing weight or building muscle or maintaining the way that you want to do it, it very likely has to do with the lack of awareness of what you're doing. In fact, if I were to ask anybody in this room, except for maybe him, if I were to ask anybody in this room to record with accuracy what you ate yesterday, nobody here in this room could do it. Not with the right portion size, not with the calorie content, not with the macronutrient breakdown, not with the fiber content. You could not do it. Even if you think, I track my stuff all the time, you still wouldn't be able to recall it. You'd miss something. You'd miss the soda you don't want to talk about. You'd miss the alcohol or caffeine you don't want to talk about. You'd miss the chocolate. You'd miss, or something you just overlook because you have it every day. Bananas on your oatmeal. You just forgot about it. You had oatmeal. Nobody knows. You don't know what you ate yesterday. But when you document this stuff for a period of time, you get to know who you are. You are, as a physical byproduct, you are the sum of what you do with what you eat and how you move, how you exercise. Did you know? Sit down for this. Okay, some bunch of you are sitting down. Some of you back in the wall, careful. Did you know right now the average adult American consumes 3,540 calories per day? I grew up in the 80s, 90s. We talked about a 2,000 calorie diet a lot of times. But back in the 80s, that's when ultra-processed foods really started entering the market. And it changed everything. Now we're overfed and undernourished, all of us. The average, that means there's a lot of people eating over 4,000 calories a day. Absolutely. I've been there. Absolutely. There's a lot of people doing that. The average adult American consumes 3,540 calories per person per day. That's inherently not a massive problem, aside it's pretty high excess consumption using resources based on what we actually require for our human bodies. It wouldn't be a problem if not for this. And I'm going to pause right here and say this is not to body shame anyone. But right now, 73.6% of Americans are overweight. 42.5% of Americans are obese. And 1 in 2, every other person you see at the supermarket, at the bank, if anyone still goes to banks, wherever you go to an arena, go to a sporting event, every other person is going to have in their lifetime type 2 diabetes, cancer, heart disease, hypertension, or some other degenerative disease that's going to contribute to early mortality. So it's not to body shame anyone about the habits that we have as a collective society, but to show that there's consequences to these. And we can become statistics. For the first time in 100 years, COVID had something to do with this, but just something to do with it. For the first time in 100 years, our lifespan as Americans has dipped by 2 years. That's a huge chunk, from 78 down to 76 years. And this has a lot to do with our environment. That is why I ask you, to take a few days, take a week, and document what you eat throughout that week. Because you will learn so much about yourself. You know what I learned about myself? I've been vegan for 30 years, but the last time I had a salad was in August. Yeah. What I learned was that I was addicted to caffeine. It had control over me. I did not have control over it. Hundreds of milligrams per day, because I had to write it down. Yerba mate, and again, yerba mate again, yerba mate again. Robert, come on now. Learn from yourself. Yeah, save myself from myself. You will learn so much about yourself. The foods that you eat, the ones that you might be mildly addicted to, the foods that you don't eat. How am I up here with a microphone as a vegan for decades, but I don't eat salad greens, when I know that per calorie, they have the most nutrient density of any food on the planet? Because I had to learn that about myself. And then once you learn that, you got to take action. So there's a lot of people here that have health and fitness goals. What are you doing with those? How do you show up day after day to fit those into your lifestyle? We all have 1,440 minutes each day. As I mentioned, Bill Phillips in the Body for Life program, the most successful body transformation program in history, was only asking for 40 minutes of our time each day. Go get a workout in. Yeah, 1,400 other minutes to do whatever you want. But show up today for yourself, for your health, for longevity. The best thing that we can do is incorporate resistance weight training. Build more muscle, create greater bone density, reduce the risk of injury by being stronger, help with everything from memory to strength to preventing injuries, to be more effective at burning fat by carrying more muscle, to also burning fat from those workouts as well, to all the other mood-enhancing benefits and all the things that come with progress with resistance weight training. But we can't put in all this work, do all this weight training, and then feed ourselves low-quality food. I already told you we're all overfed and undernourished. I told you how many calories we consume collectively, but I've got a few other things. Make sure you're sitting down for this. Okay, some of you in the back are your knees are about to go out. Right now, we eat most of our calories, those 3,540, up to 85% of them from processed foods and animal protein. 15% of the rest of our diet is fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. How your knees feeling now? We are obsessed with ultra-processed foods that are around every street corner. They're tasty, they're affordable, they're convenient, they're deep fried, covered in sugar, oil, and salt. We can't get enough of them. But what that means is now that makes up anywhere from 70 to 85% of our total calorie intake. What is that going to do for our health? When we learn that many of those foods contain excess amounts of dietary cholesterol, saturated fat, class 1 or class 2A carcinogens, super excess calories that make it almost impossible to lose weight. You almost can't do it. You almost can't exercise enough to outwork all those excess calories. And on top of that, we know that there's 64 times more antioxidants in plants than animal foods. 97% of us, including those in this room, don't consume enough fiber. Fiber is only found in plants. One of the Achilles heels of the American and North American and Western diet is cholesterol, which is only found in animal protein, animal-based foods. And when you add that to our new normal, that we spend 97% of our time indoors, which is a little bit indicative of our inactivity. We don't move anymore, and we eat 3,500 calories a day. And you want to know where those come from? 80% of Americans in survey admit to or say that they eat fast food once a week. 37% of Americans eat fast food every day. 20% of Americans eat at least one meal in their car per day, which suggests perhaps a fast food meal. And you know that expression, you can't outwork a bad diet, or can't out-exercise a bad diet? You know why that is? Because you would have to do hours and hours of exercise to offset the calories consumed from a fast food meal. And you don't have the energy to do it. And even if you did, you would exercise for these hours and then you'd be hungry because you exercise for hours and you would just eat more. So what we need to do is reduce consumption of ultra-processed foods and animal protein as much as possible. So how do we do that? Let's look at the calorie density scale for a moment. I'm sure some of you are familiar with this, others it might blow your mind. On one end of the calorie density scale, the very lowest end, leafy green vegetables, they have 60 to 100 calories per pound. Let's just go with 100. Let's round up. Let's give them more credit. 100 calories per pound in leafy greens. Oil and other pure fats, 4,000 calories per pound. So 40-time difference. So when you eat a salad and cover it with an oily dressing, you could be eating more calories than a burger or pizza, but you think because it's a salad, it's good for me. And I haven't had one since August, so I don't even know. I don't know what salad tastes like. Kidding me? Let us try that. Let us turn up the beat. You know what I'm saying? Those are vegetable references. Let us turn up beat for those in the back. Yeah, you got it right there. See, there we go. Let's keep going. The other end over here, 200 calories per pound for vegetables. Might surprise you. Another plant-based food, nuts and seeds, 2,800 calories per pound. Nut butter on a bagel. We'll get to breads in a second. Back over here, my favorite, fruits. My favorite fruit, I can't get enough of fruit. 300 calories per pound. Processed foods, pastries, whatever, crackers, chips, 2,300 calories per pound. You get the idea here? Let's keep going. It's fundamental. Fundamentally important. Potatoes, rice, beans, lentils, legumes, all those foods, about 500 calories per pound. Pretty awesome. Good fuel source, carbohydrate fuel, fiber, protein, energy. That's great. Animal protein starts at 1,000 calories per pound and goes up from there. And comes with a lot of baggage, right? We talk about the dietary cholesterol, the lack of fiber, the saturated fat, the oftentimes class 1 or class 2A carcinogens, the artery clogging stuff, the damaging of endothelial cells, our artery walls. But when you just look at it from a calorie perspective, how could anybody expect to lose weight or increase their fitness, drop body fat, when they're eating a diet of animal protein and processed foods? You can't physically do it. You can't exercise enough to do it, because we have to look at I was hoping to talk about a little story about protein. We might have time. But we have to look at the protein package. Is anyone familiar with this concept of protein package? I'm not talking about the plastic it comes in, but how we mostly consume protein. Many times in Western society, we consume protein from meat, from animal sources. And that often comes smothered in cheese, which is like 1,700 calories per pound or something like that, and covered with a white refined bun on top that's buttered at 4,000 calories per pound for butter, with a dairy-based or egg-based mayonnaise sauce dripping on there. All right. And then fried and grilled and deep fried, covered in oil. Okay, now I've got this 1,500 calorie meal. Give me some fries on the side. Give me a drink to wash it down. 2,000 calories. That's my daily calorie intake in one meal. The problem with the protein package, when it's animal protein, when it's plant-based protein, the package of tofu. Oh, it helps, fight cancer. It's good for your heart. It's got a high concentration of plant-based protein that's been shown in studies to be as effective at building muscle as those who are eating meat in clinical trials for men and women. without the cholesterol, without as much fat, without the environmental damage, without slaughtering of animals, a food that is super healthy, that people have been eating for thousands of years, especially in some of the fittest, trimmest societies in the world. Great protein source. But without all that baggage, sign me up. Sign me up. You know the most nutrients per penny that you can get for any food? And we throw some, talk about cost effectiveness and total nourishment for bang for your buck. I wrote a 35-page paper on this with about 10 citations, including all kinds of USDA resources and all these all these places that determine these kind of factors and our authorities in this area. Any guesses? Bananas without cabbage, who said lentils? The mighty lentil. Yeah, there you go. Round of applause for the mighty lentil. Most bang for your buck. But who wants to eat them? Nobody cares. Yeah, go tell your friends now. Go tell your friends eat some lentils. Right. Right. So a plant-based diet doesn't have to be expensive. Doesn't have to be elitist. Doesn't have to be exclusive. You know what the other cheapest foods were? Other beans, rice, and oats. Not that expensive. And great sources of fiber and carbohydrate fuel and lacking cholesterol and help you feel full and energized and all this stuff. But it's got to make it into our diet or else it doesn't do any good. Is anyone here familiar with the Andy score? The aggregate nutrient density index? There's another thing to take home message here. Joel Fuhrman's Andy score, aggregate nutrient density index. He uses about 37 different factors to determine the most nutrients per calorie of foods. He has something like equation like health equals nutrients divided by calories. At the very top, again, I talked about price earlier, lentil, so don't get thrown off by that. That wasn't the most nutrients, it was nutrients per the cost. But nutrients per calorie is what we're talking about here. Most nutrients per calorie. They have a score of 1,000, the highest you can get, the Andy score. Any idea? Oh, wait, I just like hearing. Keep talking. Keep talking. Yeah, I like it. Oh, I get a drink of water here. Keep talking. Okay, a lot of good. I like audience participation. Dark leafy greens like kale and collard greens and mustard greens. Dark leafy green vegetables based on, 37 points of criteria. Maybe it's 34 points. I stand corrected. But anyway, it's 30-something points of criteria, which how many antioxidants do they have? How much fiber, vitamin and mineral content, dietary cholesterol, toxins, all these different factors, nitric oxide. So Fuhrman's got this Andy score. At the very top are dark leafy greens. So now we know these are the most nutrient-dense foods that we can consume. And down the list, you start getting Brussels sprouts and some other vegetables, and you get legumes like lentils and stuff. And again, starts at 1,000. And you go all the way down. Berries, of course, fantastic sweet potatoes, all down the list. You've got to go all the way down. And it's pretty low. You've got to go all the way down to, I believe it's a score of 38 to get to the first animal protein source, which is either shrimp or salmon. From 1,000, you got to go all the way down to 30s. And by the way, I know some people in this room love this stuff. The worst, the lowest score you can possibly get for food. Any guesses? Fried meat, bread, cheese. Okay, food/beverage. Unnecessary beverages, actually. Soda and chips. Soda and chips are the worst. No nutrient score at all, basically. A score of 1. 1 and one's a score of like 5. There's like a tiny bit of something in the chip, maybe a piece of corn in it or something like that. But what do we eat as a society? When we watch football on every given Sunday, when we watch sporting events, when we go to the movies or to the game, or when we have friends over, or when we're socializing, or when we're bored, or when we get something that's cheap because it's in every gas station, it's in every grocery store, it dominates the aisles, has bright colors, we're drawn to it. Chips and soda. Chips and soda. It goes back to what I was asking you earlier. What do you eat? Because you are the sum of what you eat and how you move. As far as how our bodies are inside and out. The damage that's going on inside or the health promoting that's going on inside and outside. Many of us, without knowing it, are consuming a whole lot of chips, a whole lot of fried food, a lot of soda, a lot of caffeine, a lot of alcohol, and we don't know it because no one's asked us to document this. I'll tell you a quick story as I run short on time. I have so many stories. There's so many I'd like to share, but one I will share just because it just happened. I have spent the past decade weighing over 200 pounds. I know it's a weird thing to be proud of, but like I was so small, growing up, I wanted to get bigger and stronger, and I did. I became quite strong for a while, at least strong for me. And I carried a body weight of over 200 pounds for a decade. Peter and Jill and many people in this room have known me for a long time and have seen my body changed a lot based on what my personal goals were, how I felt. When I went on the Rich Roll podcast, one of the biggest podcasts in the world, I wanted to be 220 pounds because that would signify the moment I'd gained 100 pounds on a plant-based diet, which I know is not the American dream, but it was my dream. And when you got a dream, you got to protect it. Right? Pursuit of happiness. You got a dream, you got to protect it. I put on 100 pounds. Pride. Right? But guess what? I was a former champion athlete. I didn't even tell you because, keep it quiet, right? I was champion runner, champion soccer player, champion basketball player, champion bodybuilder. I'm pretty good at athletics. And then I became obese, like clinically obese, the last couple of years, during COVID especially. 220 pounds, and I wasn't, or 223, and I wasn't actually doing much aside from lifting some heavy weights and barely burning any calories. I'm burning more calories walking across the stage than I was doing back then. I was obese. Got blood work done, and here I was, this face of vegan fitness, the godfather of vegan bodybuilding, been doing this longer than most. And my blood work wasn't good. I didn't want to talk about it, kept it quiet. I want to save animals, right? I want to talk about it. But it wasn't veganism, it was me. It was me. I'm going on a slight tangent here because I wasn't going to tell this story, but I will real quick. Hold on, I'm going to tell the story in a second. Some years back, I had a pretty bad spine accident as a result. Well, I heard it back in 1996, track and field thing where I hurt my spine in high school, but then it keeps flaring up. Crystal knows this, flares up over and over and over. But I had a really bad one where I couldn't stand up for about 5 days. I literally just crawled to the bathroom or just stopped eating and drinking. My wife had to help put socks on and things like that. I remember even being in a crosswalk with our 10-pound chihuahua. I couldn't even pick him up if a car was coming. It was tough. For 5 months, I didn't exercise. Injured spine. But I was so proud of being this 200-pound bodybuilder that I kept eating that way, even though I stopped exercising. It was one frozen vegan burrito after another. I was writing books. I just kind of was sitting in the chair. My wife would bring food to me. I wasn't burning calories. And I became obese. I don't have a lot of photos from that time, but I have some, and it's pretty interesting to look at. But I was a product of my environment. I stopped exercising, and I ate all kinds of processed foods, even though I had just written a book about eating only plant-based whole foods, endorsed by Dr. Campbell Nesselson. But I was a product of my environment. I was depressed for the first time in my life. I was eating ultra-processed foods to feel better. I couldn't exercise. My spine was damaged, herniated discs in multiple areas in my lower lumbar spine. And I was pretty bummed out. And that emotional eating led to a certain result. We've all been there, every single one of us. About a year and a half ago, before I went on a trip to Thailand with this classic character in the back, my friend who actually got me into the sport of bodybuilding a quarter century ago, he's in the back there, Jordan. I didn't realize that. Give it up for Jordan. I wouldn't be doing any of this if it wasn't for him. And I mean that. Jordan in the back, he got me into the sport of bodybuilding, which changed my life forever. And he's helped me with all my books, including my New York Times bestseller. I couldn't do this without Jordan. So shout out to Jordan and much gratitude and appreciation. But I was once again 212 pounds last year. Again, I was feeling strong, but I would even walk by my car, walking by cars, walking the dog, and just see I had this, a big gut. I was so proud of bulking up again, 220 pounds, 215 pounds, that I became obese again. Like, man, Robert, when will you learn? And so I went on a a fat loss challenge. And this is what happened. Again, for anyone who wants to apply some of these strategies into your life, this maybe in the final few minutes here could be helpful. I tracked my calorie intake and saw that it was between 3,000 and 4,000 calories a day of all vegan foods, processed and non-processed. And I looked at what I was doing with exercise expenditure, mostly sitting on machines and lifting weights and playing around on my phone in between sets. And I started this new program where I went in a calorie deficit. So again, mine was a little bit more extreme, but I'll be transparent with you. I went from eating 3,500 calories a day down to 2,300 calories a day. Again, still above a 2,000 calorie threshold that many people strive for. I just had to be mindful. Stop eating the 440 calorie cookie, vegan Lenny and Larry's protein cookie. That's a quarter of my daily intake. You kidding me? While I check my email? Man, that's not fun at all. I got like 4 bananas instead, or 2 big bowls of fruit, all kinds of stuff, right? Or a salad without all the dressing, or a salad this big with the dressing. I started eating 2,300 calories a day. That's pretty big, 1,200 calorie deficit. I recognize that. I was hungry at first. But weight started coming off because that's how science works. You know, I'm just not consuming the calories and my body's not hanging on to them. So weight's coming off. Okay, that's good. I started 212 pounds. And then I was working with a coach at the time, and he said, okay, I want you to start, now that you're physically able to, Robert, I was getting winded going upstairs, even though I'm a former champion athlete, start doing some cardiovascular training, like, elliptical. I don't like elliptical. I don't like that. So I'll do the bike instead. Then I can check my email. Obsessive compulsive workaholic over here. So I could check my email while I rode the bike. Turns out I'm pretty obsessed with my email, so I bike for an hour and a half at a time sometimes. But what happened was I started burning more calories doing that. And then I got this little gift on my wrist here. I'm as low tech as it gets. Microphone's about all I can handle. I don't know how to use apps on a phone, really. I can't even log into Facebook on my phone. I use my laptop. My wife got me this Fitbit. And I realized, man, Robert, you're a former champion runner. I once ran 39, it's nothing to brag about, but I ran 39 miles in 2 days. That's a marathon and a half marathon the next day. I was a decent runner. Ran at Oregon State University. I was good. 3 minutes. But I realize I'm a writer and I'm really good at it. I've written 6 books. I'm working on 3 new books right now. I'm really good at it. But I'm also really good at sitting. It's art. I mastered it. Mastered the art of sitting. So I was only walking a few thousand steps a day. And then I started paying attention to this little Fitbit thing. And I started walking 10,000 steps a day. Like drinking 8 glasses of water. But why do the minimum? Why stop at 10,000? Yeah, exactly. What happened? Yeah, I went to 15,000. And then 20,000 a day. And some days over 30,000. But this wasn't excessive. I was walking while I'm having a phone call with my parents. Walking the dog more than just once. I was walking in between sets. I would do a set of bench press and then walk around for a couple minutes during that recovery. I've walked, I just checked, just about 4,000 steps on the stage right here in 44 minutes. Exactly. Thank you. And only 1 drink of water, mind you. And it's a bubbly one. I don't want too much of that. What happened? Calorie deficit every day. And I stuck to it. I tracked it every day. Incorporate just a couple days of cardiovascular training. And I started walking. I lost 27 pounds in under 4 months. I got down from 212 to 185, and I felt fit. And it was great. And I did it in a short amount of time. Now, that's a little more, I wouldn't recommend going that fast. I would do maybe a 500 calorie deficit or 400 calorie deficit a day. You can certainly lose weight slower. But again, it was a product of my environment and of my actions. I wanted to tell you today a history of our obsession with protein. I have this great story about that. A 30-second summary is about how we discovered in 1838, and it was like the stuff of life itself, and how we first started fencing in animals in the 1800s, and then chickens. We first started industrialized factory farming in the 1920s, and then microwaves came out in 1945, and TV dinners in the 50s, and diners and fast food in the 1960s, and we were obsessed with protein intake and animal protein as the source, and it got out of hand. We're now 73.6% of us are overweight, half of us are obese, And that's not to body shame anyone. We're a product of our environment. We have fast food and concentrated calories on every corner, and we can't get enough of it unless we say enough is enough and we try something different. I'm going to leave you with something today. We are exactly at the stopping time, but it's a quote I leave everywhere I go, and I hope to get the opportunity to speak to audiences like this again in my native home state of Oregon in the future. But I want you to think about this because this quote fundamentally changed my life as well. So I actually take it quite seriously. It's a quote from H. Jackson Brown Jr., who said, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the things that you did do. All the opportunities you had to change diet, change lifestyle, start following exercise or some sort of passion or interest, or pursue something meaningful like writing a book or exercising or burning fat or committing to something or higher education or whatever it is, we're more disappointed by the things we didn't do. The things we didn't say, the actions we didn't take, than by the things that we did do. So my challenge to you as I leave you here today is to find what tugs at your heart. I told you my why at the beginning. I wanted to make a difference in the lives of animals, and for me that vehicle was fitness. That I could show people that I could build my body without animal protein, and I did it. And I did it for decades. And I have no business writing books. I don't have a degree in English or even a degree. And that's true. And I became one of the most prolific self-published authors in America to the point that I landed a book deal with the world's second largest publisher and became an instant New York Times bestseller with The Plant-Based Athlete. It's also #1 international bestseller and is published in 8 languages worldwide. Thank you in the front. I only say that to say that everybody here is more capable than you're aware of, whether it's fitness related or health related or something you want to do to help reduce animal suffering and promote veganism or become an impactful vegan. You have so much to offer when you step into your own greatness and find the reasons why you're doing it. So I want you to answer the call, what tugs at your heart, and take some of that homework from today's call, or I'm on a Zoom call right now. Take away some of those messages today. Spend a few days documenting what you eat. Become aware of who you are. And focus on the foods that provide the most nourishment, the exercises that produce the greatest return on investment, which is resistance weight training with weights, and incorporate that on a regular basis and watch your life change in the ways that you want it to and achieve desired results.